and I had 1,000, felt like a million thoughts all at the same time. My vision went completely black. And in this blackness, there was one golden box hovering, and there was a golden light just coming out of the opening of the lid. And I had this understanding and this knowing that this is a type of evolution, and this is a switch within everyone's mind. And if I was just to open this lid, I would have all the answers. It would be an upgrade. This is what I thought in the moment. My human mind started to panic because obviously it realized that wasn't not quote unquote normal. What hit me was just an infinite dimension. That's the best way that I can explain it. There was no space, there was no time, there was no location. It was just infinity.
Welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Endless Possibilities Podcast. My name is Gareth and I'm your host today for another exciting conversation. Today we are diving deep into the world of spiritual awakening and out-of-body experiences. Today on the show I have Sasha. Sasha is from the UK. Sasha's had a number of awakenings and he now teaches people how to have an out-of-body experience through the vibrational state. Today's conversation, we talk about all sorts of amazing things. You're going to really love this one. So make sure you get comfortable, get yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and yeah, let's go. Now, Sasha, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So generally, I have people just talk a little bit about their background before we get into the main part of the conversation. Do you want to tell us how you got started off?
Yeah, I'll give you a brief description of my childhood. It was quite an average childhood. Was brought up in a working class family. I was a very curious child. I always wanted to know more. I always looked deeper into people's kind of comments and their questions, and I tried to read behind what they were really trying to say. So that's the type of kid I was. I had sleep paralysis. I always say since I was 4 years old, but honestly it could be before that. I had it on and off my whole life, and I still do. I think that maybe led me to questioning more. When I was 21, I had an awakening type of experience, although I don't like to label it because it's something that can't be labeled. But just out of ease, I'll say that I had an awakening. I became aware of my true nature. I became aware of everything and nothing. And that took maybe 12 to 13 years of integration. And I don't even want to say that it's fully integrated now. It's just, I understand it. And I try to live through that. I try to live an embodiment of that. And now I've created a space where I can teach people how to see truth for themselves and how to integrate that truth and embody it so that they can be a light to others. It's kind of the best way I can say it.
Wow. So tell me what happened in the awakening.
Okay. It was completely unexpected. I just went on holiday with my friends and someone had the idea to have some mushrooms, and it's something I've never looked into in my life. So there were 6 of us. We went there and I asked the person who was selling them in the shop what they'd do, and they said, you just see some funny colors and you'll laugh a lot. It's just like being stoned but a bit more. So I was like, okay, that sounds cool, I'll take some of them. Okay, so what happened was all of my friends were basically experiencing something that I couldn't understand, and I wasn't. I was just watching them, and it was almost like they were in sync, but they didn't even realize they were in sync with each other. I noticed them all laugh at the same time. I noticed them just stay in silence at the same time. And out of nowhere, I had this anxiety within me. I had this panic attack. I felt vibrations or electricity run all through my mind. And I had felt like a million thoughts all at the same time. My vision went completely black. And in this blackness, there was one golden box hovering, and there was a golden light just coming out of the opening of the lid. And I had this understanding and this knowing that this is a type of evolution, and this is a switch within everyone's mind. And if I was just to open this lid, I would have all the answers. It would be an upgrade. This is what I thought in the moment. My human mind started to panic because obviously it realized that wasn't not quote unquote normal. And I gained my vision, my human vision again. I kind of freaked out and I called to my friends because they were all fresh air. So I called to them and they came down the stairs and I opened the front door. And what hit me was just an infinite dimension. That's the best way that I can explain it. There was no space, there was no time, there was no location. It was just infinity. And I felt instant nihilism in that moment. I felt like I was everything. I felt like I was nothing. I didn't really understand or interpret what was happening. The golden box moment. So when my human mind started to panic and realized that wasn't quote unquote normal, my vision came back and I called up to my friends. They were in the apartment that was up some stairs. I was at the bottom of the stairs with the front door. I called them because I panicked and I just wanted some fresh air. So I opened the door, and as I stood out, everything just disappeared. Time, space, location, self. I didn't know at the time what it was. I didn't understand. It caused huge nihilism, instant kind of depression, panic, terror, because I was just a 21-year-old kid who didn't even think about anything other than what we see. So when this hit me, it's hard to speak about how I thought then because of how I think now, because I've integrated it. But when this hit me, I just knew that I was in terror, and I knew that I was trying to grasp. I was trying to grab anything that felt normal, anything that felt human. And I didn't understand why I couldn't. And that's what caused the terror. I didn't understand that the grasping and the grabbing of something that isn't actually there is what caused the terror. Yeah, I don't know, because I can just go with this, but I don't know how.
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about, because when I was 14, I took LSD and I couldn't find myself. I was sat there and I couldn't find the voice that was in my head, and I started to panic. I felt like I had lost me, and I was like, I just had to like run away by myself, sit down, and I was like, okay, where am I? Where have I gone? You know, I couldn't fathom a thought in my mind. It was just gone. And there was a panic. Is that kind of what happened? You just couldn't find a center point? Hi guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode with Sasha. This is just a quick request to anybody who's new to the channel and you are enjoying this content. If you would like to support us, please subscribe to our channel. Subscribing lets YouTube know that we are a worthwhile program, and they push us out to new audiences on their platform. The bigger our audience, the bigger the guests we can have, and the more exposure our guests get. Now, back to the interview. Thank you so much, guys.
There was nothing to hold on to. I felt everything, but I felt nothing. So the everything was the nothing, but the nothing was the everything. And people who have gone through this can relate to that, but it's hard to actually explain what that means or how that feels. it was just an infinite expansion into something that had no beginning and no end. It was an infinite dimension. And that's what I became aware of. I know now that that's me. That's the true state of me. But in that moment, I was trying to find Sasha, and Sasha didn't exist. I was trying to find emotion. I was trying to cling on to love. I couldn't even cling on to love, because what I realize now is that my interpretation of love, it wasn't what it was. The love that I thought was actual love wasn't. It was just another label that my mind had created for what love really is. Yeah.
So you're 21, you're on holidays. So this just happens. Where do you go next? Like what you wake up the next day? What's changed?
I wake up the next day and I'm hoping that has disappeared. That experience disappeared, but I knew that the experience never disappears because it's what is. So I didn't know that in the time, but I know that now. But I couldn't get rid of that feeling of everything. It was just there, even when I opened my eyes. And I just felt sad. I felt like I'd lost. I felt like I'd died. And I know that can come across as quite strong, but it made me understand exactly what death is, the illusion of death and what it really is. And it is really just the loss of your accumulations, your labels, your box that you've created for yourself. So I was trying to find connection that day after, and those days and weeks after. I was trying to find connection. I was trying to feel again. I just wanted to be my old self again. I wanted to laugh when my friends laughed, because I felt like I was acting when they were laughing and I was just pretending to laugh. So those following days and weeks was me trying to find a center point again, was me trying to find my old self and feel connection.
Wow. I feel you. Because I know exactly what you're talking about, and it literally feels like you've broken the human. It feels like you're lost. You just can't get back. For me, I kind of, it almost felt like I was. You ever see these kind of space movies where the astronaut floats out of the ship and he can't get back in or something? That's how I felt. I was just like I was lost at space.
Yeah. Into the nothingness, yeah, just
into the nothingness. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's why these last 12, 13 years has been huge for me, because it's been part of me trying to ignore it and part of me trying to integrate it. And what I learned is that there was a moment, it was only about a minute, but in that moment of that experience, I surrendered out of exhaustion. I surrendered out of trying to grab something that I couldn't get hold of. And in that surrender, I had one moment, 1 minute of complete bliss, of not being the emptiness that had nothing, but being the fullness that had everything. And that moment is what's probably allowed me to embody and understand and integrate the experience. Because now I focus on being that, but fully in the human. So now I have no emptiness. I love more. I feel more. I get hurt more. I try to bring people into the moment, because I realize the importance of the mind trying to always have a job to do and take you elsewhere except for right here. I think I heard you mention before, and this is what really resonated with me when you said, it doesn't matter how many experiences you have, I'm just paraphrasing, but you always seem to be brought back to the moment. That's exactly what I feel, because there is nothing else. It doesn't matter where you go, what you see, that always happens in this one infinite moment.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so the shift happens. You're 21. You get back from holidays. What's everyday life? What's going on? Like, did you go on a quest to start finding out what happened? How did you start to piece it all together?
Yeah, I started, firstly, when I got back, everything felt just dull. I was completely neutral. I had neutrality in every aspect of my life. When people spoke to me, there was just nihilism. There was just felt like no point or no meaning in those first few months, I'd say. First few months, I was just trying to find myself, and I was trying to search for answers for what had happened to me. The only thing that came close to resonating was the idea of nirvana in Buddhism. So that led me to find the closest Buddhist temples near me, and I went there to find answers, but nothing helped because, yeah, I kind of felt rejected, or that wasn't right for me. I don't think where I'm from, there's really that, Eastern cultural Buddhism. If that, maybe there is, but I didn't find that. So these following weeks and months, I was just trying to find out what happened to me in this neutral state and trying to become human again. I was trying to get my old self back again, even though I knew that had gone, even though I knew I had this new perspective, but I didn't want to admit it. I thought I could always get that back, but I knew deep down I couldn't.
It reminds, there's a book, I think it's called Collision with the Infinite, of a woman, something similar happened. And she thought she started going to therapists trying to get herself back. She just couldn't find it anymore. Okay, so I also heard you talking about out-of-body experiences. Did they were they always happening in your childhood, or did they come after?
No, so in my childhood, the kind of furthest I went was I did come out, but because of my experience now, I know that I wasn't fully conscious when I came out. So I was kind of this half self that was roaming around the room. Sometimes I was stumbling. It was hard. Felt like I was walking in mud. I was experimenting with, there was always like shadow beings around. So I was experimenting with changing their form. At first, they was really terrifying, but over the years, I learned that it was just my fear projecting that. But really, after my integration of this experience and listening to the community online talk about out-of-body experiences through sleep paralysis, I didn't even know that was a thing or that was possible. So only this past year and a half, I've started experimenting with that. And I've had some pretty amazing experiences through out-of-body and through dreams, through lucid dreams. What I got shown last year really was, well, the first half of last year was that there's a multidimensional aspect to me. I was able to summon a wormhole in my dreams that would take me to potential parallel lives, but I don't like saying that because,
well,
yeah,
I mean, so I was shown past lives. I was shown my 3 previous past lives, and then I was shown a parallel life that's playing out at the moment in India. And it's like a 13-year-old Indian boy who's psychic. But I mean, it's like, well, what do I do with that? It's just like, yeah, it's over there. I don't know. So,
yeah.
So you were shown one or many, or?
So I've had an experience where I went through a wormhole in a lucid dream, and I woke up in a body that was in a kind of futuristic type environment. I only know that because the computer had AI on the screen and it was talking to me, and my name was Luke there, and I knew that because a robotic voice called me Luke. But really what I've been shown is it's kind of like symbology. I've been shown that, okay, so I went through one wormhole and it took me into this white void, and I was looking down onto all of my lives, but I understood there wasn't exactly 1,000 lives. It was just a symbolic representation that I am more than one life. I saw that. I was taken to a city where it was just me. I was represented as an obelisk or a tower, and I saw my wormhole coming from the top of it. And as my awareness zoomed out, there was a city of obelisks that all had their own individual wormhole. And I knew that was all my lives that had their own link through these wormholes. So the first half of last year, after integrating all of these experiences through lucid dreams, I've come to the conclusion that we are something that I call an oversoul. And I have heard someone mention it previously, which took me by surprise because that came to me.
I've heard, yeah. I mean, I use oversoul. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Which to me is all of your lives in one. That's like the soul. And then you've got the fragmented or emanated individual souls that experience their lives like what we're experiencing now. And we kind of go back to that soul, or at least our memories and experiences go back to that soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I got from the first half of last year.
Okay. So, yeah. So, okay. All of this stuff is going on. Like, are you, I'm just trying to think like how I worked, right? So I started trying to figure out like a framework of what was happening. So I started research and I came across teachers, books, and I would listen to audiobooks and read. I would like, oh, that's what's happened to me. And I was kind of piecing it all together. Did you find anything like that? Was there any one particular teacher that you resonated with, or any sort of like Hinduism or anything that kind of gave you kind of a model to work with?
No, I used to try to search, but what came more for me this past year was me just being involved with me and me learning from me and me trusting me. And I've spoke before about people try to kind of force, and I'm not knocking anyone, they try to force an out-of-body experience, and then they try to map and label, numbers of realms, and, great, do that. But I've never been that type. When I get into an experience, I ask for truth and I'm open and surrendered to what I'm shown. And I'm always shown something that has to do with me, with my awareness and reality as a whole. So I'm trying to stay away from, and this is why I mentioned to you before, I think we started, I tried to stay away from watching any teachers or reading anything, because I want it to be as pure and as authentic as possible. But saying that, I'm also not knocking reading information like from Hinduism and Buddhism and ancient cultures, because they do map things and that can help people who are struggling with understanding. So
yeah, for me, with because I started before my awakening. I was having out of body experiences, and Bob Monroe was one of the people I kind of found, and I was just like, wow, So he really helped me, I have to say. Yeah. So tell me how it all. So how did you start to integrate it all? Like like, did the awakening just go in one part, or was there more that kind of folded afterwards?
yeah, the integration of the mushroom experience has hugely helped me with just being open and integrating everything that's happened afterwards. There was one thing that I wanted to mention and ask you about, maybe get your thoughts on it. There's been a couple times where the wormhole has appeared in sleep paralysis. And one particular time, it was different. It was golden. It was warm. I felt the warmth on my soul body, subtle body, whatever you want to call it. There was a presence with me that tilted my head back and relaxed me, that allowed me to come out of my body. And I felt like I was being drawn and going into that warmth. But I did panic. It's one thing thinking, oh, that sounds cool, but it's another thing when you've got this swirling vortex above your head about to take you up into the sky or wherever you go. I heard you mention something, and it may have been in one of your videos to do with samadhi, but about something golden.
It could be. I mean, I talk about Brahman, which is like the absolute nothingness. And then I talk about this little blue pearl that was opening up that I would get sucked into. To me, that was like the mind of God, Krishna consciousness. The golden thing, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Golden ooze or something. But
Oh, okay.
it's
Yeah. Yeah,
um
so I feel that coming down into my mind. It was like my crown chakra was opening up, and when I was meditating, it would feel like there was golden treacle coming down, kind of like, I don't know. It's like somebody was dripping honey on top of my head.
right, okay. See, that's because I was thinking I've had the golden box, the golden wormhole. I've heard you mention the golden honey dripping down, and I just think, that golden's very specific. But anyway, I will go on to. There was a really interesting experience that I had during sleep paralysis. I came out of my body. Well, I was hovering above my body, and normally at this time, I will roll out to the left or imagine myself at the end of the room, and it would just happen. I kept hovering because I wanted to know how much I could just hover. And I hovered, I hovered, I hovered, I hovered. I got so high and I felt this tension, and then there was a massive pop. And it was like a champagne bottle popping kind of pop. I was instantly in this void, but the void had no color, no sound, no location again, but it was different to anything I've ever experienced. It was pure peace, weightlessness, nothing to do, but nothing to want to do, nowhere to go, but nowhere to want to go. It was such a nice feeling. But in that moment, I thought, there was no thoughts as well, but it was kind of like what, am I dead? Have I died? This feels different to anything I've experienced before. As soon as I had that thought, I slowly started to wake up back into my body. But as my eyes were opening, I watched my room form back into form. There was like an opening in reality that was like a grey, black, white mixture color, and it kind of formed back. And because I was still in a state of not my body, it seemed normal to me at the time. And after a couple of minutes, I felt something in my bed, and it was my foot, and then I felt it was on my other foot, and then I got my whole body back, and then I just thought, wow, what have I just experienced? That was a huge moment in my life, because it's led to these latest experiences that I've had, and it's what it's done is show me what reality actually is. It's shown me that it's a projection. It's shown me that I always knew from the mushroom experience that we was an observer, like awareness that didn't really move, but this really showed me how it worked. And it showed me that everything that we see is projected in front of us, and we are just observing and looking at it all. That's why there's no distance, there's no space, because it's just a projection. And the only way that we actually experience space and distance is because we are focused on the projected form that's within that projected reality. This might be going over people's heads, but and that's how you experience movement. But really, you never move. The awareness is just always present. It never goes. It just looks. It just watches. So I got that from that experience.
Wow. So I talk about awakening in stages, right? So for me, my very first awakening, that awareness woke up to the reality of itself within me. So it was kind of like the witness kind of looking in on my life, and then all of a sudden that witness became aware of itself, and I was instantly free. Like, my ego didn't bother me. The ego was still there, but it just didn't bother me anymore. It was like there was a disconnect from it, and I was able to just observe it and watch it. And then, like, I noticed like that there was like an unfoldment started to happen. And I like some of the stuff that you've just spoke about there, that gray, colorless, I was in that. I got into that meditating one morning. And it's like, when I was in it, there was no time. Time just didn't exist, but yet I was there and it had depth. And I was like, what is this place? This is really, really amazing. And I was able to actually open my eyes and like look around the room and then go, okay, right. And then close my eyes again. And I was back in it. And I was like, what is this place? I never got back into it, but it was like there was depth, but no, it was like a colorless light. It was like this weird, like there was no color, but there was a light, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. I can't, there's no words for what it was. Yeah, and then I know what you mean exactly because when I had I call it Brahman, this nothingness, right? And like when you experience that, right, you kind of know that your awareness, right, prior to it. But now all of a sudden, you know that everything you're looking at is projected onto this screen of nothingness. And if you could go to the kind of corner of your peripheral vision, right, and kind of peel it back, you could see in behind that it's just nothingness. It is nothing, but yet it's appearing. Every time you turn your head, it's appearing, and it feels like it's collapsing at the same time as well when you take your attention away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what I got. Yeah. It's like you're looking behind the veil, the curtain.
Yeah.
It's like I have all of this in my head of how to show people, but I can't physically show people. It's really frustrating, but it's like friction. It's like the nothingness and reality. Reality only forms because of the friction of movement that the nothingness does. It's like yeah, I don't know how else to explain it. It is like a hologram. But the more I've understood infinity, because I felt the complete nothingness, the void you could call it, and I also felt the complete fullness. And I call that awareness and consciousness. That's how I see it. Awareness is the infinite, the unspeakable, the unnameable, and consciousness is the potential of everything that awareness can experience. That's kind of what I get from it all. But yeah, it's like a hologram. And in infinity, everything can happen, which is why it does. Yeah.
And in terms of like an energetic rewiring, did you notice like a Kundalini awakening when you were going through any of this?
No, what I have days of anxiety where I'm integrating. And it's almost like when I've fully understood it, the anxiety goes. That's what I have every time. And that's what I had after my mushroom experience, but that lasted years. I had years of anxiety until I fully understood it. And then it went. And that's what I get now. But this is why I teach in this specific way, because I've lived it and I'm living it now. And surrender is key. I will tell everyone surrender is key. Stop trying to focus on being at the top of the pyramid. Stop trying to focus on coming out and going to a heavenly realm. Focus on where you're at. Focus on your pops, your cracks, your vibrations. Focus on that, because once your nervous system, body, mind, and self become used to that and start to trust that, that's when more opens. That's what I'm getting these past 6 months.
Okay. I heard you have an experience with a guy who came out of a wardrobe in your interview with Segi. Do you want to talk a little bit because I found it fascinating when you questioned him, he kind of turned away and disappeared.
Yeah. So I had a moment of sleep paralysis and I was trying to get out and I was struggling getting out. And I had this thought, why don't you just go in? And I thought, I've never done that before, so that's not possible. Why would you do that? But something in me turned and went into myself. And I was immediately flying above this grid of lights. And one particular light just caught my attention. So I flew down into it and I kind of landed and stumbled into this room. And it was like a classroom, but a child's classroom. Segi mentioned something interesting, which I didn't think about at the time, but he said that because I was in a classroom, that already gave the feel of authority, placing me lower than or less than. So that I found that really interesting because that resonated when he said that. So I was in this classroom and I was looking around and I was so excited because of how real it was. I shouted, I could hear my voice, I could feel the air, I could smell. There was this leather sofa and I felt it and I could feel the cold on the leather. And then this guy came out of my attention was drawn to the cupboard or a wardrobe. It was a cupboard. Yeah. And he came out and he was very happy that I was there. He was smiling. He was like, I can't believe you're here. I'm so happy. I can't wait to have a conversation with you. And I thought, oh, that's nice. What a nice guy. Got this nice feeling from him. And then he said, why don't we go and sit down and have a talk? But then suddenly I thought, this is strange. So I said, do you align with love and truth? Because I've missed quite a lot of experiences out. We haven't got enough time to go through everything, but I've learned about my sovereignty and who I am and how I carry myself. So I asked him that and his face dropped and he said, I'm autonomous. And for people that don't know, because I didn't know, that kind of means I do what I want. I align with what I want. I'm my own sovereign being. So I said, that's great, but do you align with loving truth? And he turned around and walked into the cupboard. And I thought that was strange. Another guy then came out and he was very similar looking, but a bit skinnier, maybe in his mid-50s, long, greasy grey hair. And he was looking at me and smiling and very quirky. And he didn't want to look at me straight in my eyes. So it was almost like vulnerability I saw. So I was like, this guy seems like a nice person again. He was like, hi. And he walked past me and he sat down on the sofa. He's like, come and sit down. I want to talk to you. And I said, okay. I said, do you align with love and truth? And he said, about that, can we have a little loophole? So I said, no loopholes.
A loophole? What was the loophole?
I didn't ask. But yeah, what could, it's interesting. What could it have been?
Yeah.
How can you have a loophole in love and truth? Maybe he would have said, if we talk a little bit first, but anyway, I asked him if he aligned with love and truth and his face dropped. He got up and walked into the cupboard. And then lastly, a third guy came out. He was very angry. He walked straight past me, almost as if to barge past me, but he didn't come that close. He sat straight down and he said, we need to talk. And I said, great. Do you align with love and truth? And he said, no. I said, well, I'm not going to talk to you then. And he said, what about the evil that happened on the weekend? So straight away, there's two things I noticed. Straight away was I tried to recall the weekend. And then I also noticed I didn't have thought in that experience. So I couldn't recall anything anyway. But I became aware that I was in my body, back in my room. And then I brought my attention back to him and he smiled as if to say, I've got your attention. You fell for it, kind of thing. Now I've made you question. And I knew that straight away. I got that instant gut feeling of,
oh, like maybe you had carried out some sort of violence, was it?
No, more to the fact that I finally got you at least to think about our conversation. You've given up your power.
Okay, I get you.
By me questioning in this way, you've given some of your sovereignty up. That's what I got from that.
Yeah.
So I said to him, look, I don't care about any evil, don't care about the weekend. You need to tell me if you align with loving truth. Otherwise, we're not having a conversation. And he tilted his head back on the sofa. He smiled. He said, good for you. And I saw what I'll just describe as his soul just come out of his body and shoot up. And I was very frustrated in that moment. I actually said something to him. I don't regret, but I didn't hold I was pretty angry. So I turned around and I started running towards the grid where I came in, and I just shouted, I'm ready for love and truth, show me. And I flew up through the grid and I woke up in my body. That was that experience.
Wow. So who are they? Did you ever find out? Are they just astral beings?
I feel like, so this is the thing with consciousness and awareness. There's layers to it, isn't there? So in general, everything's everything. So it was me. But yeah, what I got from it, and I don't know this, so I don't know, but what I got from it was a test. It was a test of my sovereignty, and whether the fact that he smiled at the end and said "good for you" made me think it was genuine, like good intention behind it. In the end, it was just a way of testing how far I would go, and it was also a lesson for me to be like, this is how you need to be on this side or in this type of experience.
Well, it kind of brings me back to one of the Monroe scenarios where he would find himself all of a sudden like dressed in a cloak as part of like a ritual. And then people would come out and they would hand him a dagger, and there was like a woman on the table that they were meant to sacrifice. And he was like, I can't do that, and he felt like he rejected it, and then he felt like he failed the test, but he had actually passed the test in that moment. So it kind of sounds like something similar, like you were being tested in these scenarios. I got them as well. I would kind of find myself, one I always talk about is, and I think I failed this one. I was stood at the side of a field, and I noticed that there was a calf had gotten out of the field and was on the road. And I was like, oh, I better go and help the calf. So I went over and picked up the calf and walked over to the wall and placed it over the wall and put it back into the field. And I thought to myself, oh, that was a good deed, right? I did a good deed there. And I walked to the end of the road, and I got to the end of the road. This old man stopped me, and he goes, I see you helped the calf. You put the calf back in the field. And I said, yeah. And I felt real kind of like, oh, I did good. And then he kind of looked over my shoulder, and he was kind of looking at something. And I turned around and looked, and there was a kind of a factory at the front where I'd walked down to. And it was over the factory, it said slaughterhouse. And so by me thinking that I was doing good, putting the calf back in, I had put it back to be slaughtered, right? So it was, there were these weird little tests that I would get in these sort of lucid dream scenarios. Yeah.
Yeah. I do see them as tests or training. I feel like someone asked me before about like the robotic voice and who do I think that was calling me Luke and telling me the transmission was ending. And the way I see all of this, and it's just a guess based on my experiences, is that when this single focal point of awareness or this soul is ready to experience more, your oversoul provides you with training center, like tests. That's how I'm seeing it. That's what I'm getting from it all. It's like, okay, you want to see more? Here you go. I don't know if that's the case because I don't know what the end goal is. Maybe there doesn't have to be an end goal. But yeah, that's how I'm seeing it, that we're being tested in these experiences.
And then was there any kind of like guidance coming in, telling you what was happening, any higher self filtering down messages?
How it happens for me is I don't really speak to anyone. It's the integration that follows in the days after. The anxiety that's there allows me to know that there's something I need to understand. And then I kind of play with that, and I try to think deeply, okay, that could have meant that could have meant that means this. And when my anxiety disappears, it's like, okay, I've understood that fully now. It's like knowings, downloads, rather than a communication with an external being or anything like that.
Interesting. Talk to me about the anxiety. So what happens? You just start to notice anxiety in the body?
Yeah, it's just like a bubbling feeling in my chest, and it just stays there.
And no story connected to it?
No, and it's always after an experience. Even if I have what I'd consider a really good, pleasant experience, all of my experiences show me something. All of them show me something because, yeah, it's all showing me lately, how awareness works, how it operates, how reality forms, things like that. And even if it's a nice experience, I'll give you an example. I was going to go into these more recent ones, but recently I've had experiences where they've been nice, just normal. They have been like being in another life briefly and then coming out. But what I'm getting from them is the transition between the lives, the transition between one experience to another, because I don't just come out and have one experience. I'll come out and I can have multiple. And what I'm getting lately is the awareness that's remaining between transitions and how it remains and how the mechanics of reality form and disappear and how awareness just stays. So, for example, if I'll have a really nice experience of a parallel life and then it'll change it to another one, that change in between is what I was meant to focus on.
Okay, explain that to me.
Okay. I'll give you, so what's happened for me lately, more recently, there was an experience that I had where, okay, I'll start from, it goes back quite a lot. So I'm trying to think where I should start from to give you the whole perspective. Okay. You could call me almost an expert at getting into sleep paralysis. And I spoke about this in the conversation with Segi. What happened after that was my mind was almost like, yeah, you're an expert, you're teaching people now. And my mind kind of took control and I didn't realize it at the time. But when that happened, sleep paralysis stopped for me. And then I tried to get into sleep paralysis and I couldn't get into sleep paralysis. And it was almost like everything that I'd done for the last 10 years, I'd feel the tingles, I'd feel my body subtly hovering and moving. But before the vibrations, it's almost like my awareness will go tss, and I would just wake up and it just fizzled out. So I'll just give you everything because it all makes sense. It all fits. Sure. Okay. So I had a moment where I was driving on the way back from work in my van and I was going through my mind, what's going on? I'm supposed to be responsible for telling, people that are in my group and speaking on my videos that I'm an expert. And I was going through all this and I just got exhausted. I got exhausted of questioning everything and I just stopped. And in that moment of stopping, it was like my mushroom experience, but naturally. It was a moment of pure presence, of pure nothing to do. And it was like a reminder of this is it. Stop trying to do anything. Stop focusing on your mind. Stop letting your mind create a new avatar for you. Just be. And I had to pull over and I got very emotional. But that was like a reset. So a couple nights after that, without even expecting anything, I got into sleep paralysis. I didn't even try. I just got into sleep paralysis. And I was this black goo. And I was just thrashing about my house and under my floorboards and hitting off my walls, going into my body, going into dreams, thrashing about my dreams and go back into my body and out. I was doing that for about an hour. After integrating that, for the next couple of days, I realized that was like a recalibration of this new foundation of surrender of presence that I just become aware of. Yeah, there's no words for this. Okay, so after that all made sense to me, I then had this new approach to sleep paralysis and it worked. I got into sleep paralysis not long after that and I hovered out my body and I moved to the side and I wasn't the black goo, but I was like a black silhouette. And I jumped out of my wall, through my wall, and I landed on this street and there was this cobbled path. It was beautiful. It was more real than this, but visually, not physically, just visually. It was super HD, ultra real. And I looked at my hands and they were still black with no form. So I started rubbing them together because I do train on how to bring your full awareness into experiences. So you can do that by focusing on your senses and rubbing your hands and focusing on your presence within that experience. I did that. My hands formed and I jumped into the river because I wanted to see if I could feel the cold and the wet. And I could. I was freezing. I could feel the wetness.
Yeah.
I got back out in the river. This is a long-winded way of answering your question. Just stop me if you...
No, you're fine. No. I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
So I started running down the street because I was freezing and wet, and I noticed this suit shop. So I went into the suit shop, and this guy, he knew me, and I knew him, but I don't know how. And he said, "Oh, let's get you dressed, let's get you warm." So he put me into this suit, and he went, "Go and look in the mirror." So I looked in the mirror, and I wasn't me. I was very light, mousy brown, almost dark blonde hair, shaved. I was clean shaven, so I started rubbing my face because I couldn't believe it, and I could feel the stubble of a goatee. So I got pulled out of that because my dog was moving in the bedroom, and I was going in and out of these experiences, and I can't remember all of them because the less my awareness was anchored, the more they turned almost dreamlike. There was this one experience which was very, very strange, and I was a cartoon in a cartoon world, and it didn't feel nice. So I forced my way out of that. Yeah, I will get onto the transition in between. So the very last experience I had, which was very special to me, was I got more awareness back in sleep paralysis again. This was on the same night, and I exited, and I became aware of this space under the earth. Might not have been under the earth. It was like being inside an enclosed cavern or cave. It was just pure red, orange, brown rock. In the center of this landscape was a flat bed of rock, and almost like a cliff edge, and a Egyptian pyramid in the middle. And it wasn't like a huge pyramid, but it was 2 stories, two houses high maybe. In the air there was cherubs and winged lions flying around, and my awareness was in the air even though there was no sky, it was just rock. My awareness was above, and my awareness got brought down onto the foundation of the rock, and I just stumbled in as a body, which I do this in most experiences. I just stumble from the air into a body, into form. And I was just so captivated by the pyramid and the cherubs and the lions.
Cherubs are like little cupids or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, like little angels or...
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. They are just like they're like children with wings.
Okay.
Like exactly like Cupid looks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I go on to speaking about the transitioning, can I just go into this experience? 'Cause it was pretty special for me. It was almost like they allowed me entry into behind the pyramid. But before I got fully behind the pyramid, I knew I had to come back, and I woke up. I spoke to my friend a couple of days after this, and explained to him, and he asked me what are cherubs. So I Googled a cherub, and I found this picture of a cherub with half human face, half lion face. And I thought that was super interesting. How is there a lion there? Because I saw winged lions as well. When I looked into the, I think it was ancient Mesopotamian culture, they spoke about deep levels of awareness. They spoke about when one enters a deep level of awareness, a specific deep level of awareness, you get met on the threshold of that by cherubims and lamassu, which are cherubs and winged lions. And they either block you entry, or they're depicted as flying around, allowing you entry. I thought that was crazy when I read that online, because that's exactly what I got from that experience.
Wow.
So a week after this, and this wasn't long ago now, a week after this, I got into sleep paralysis again, and the wormhole appeared in my bedroom. Not the golden one. It was more of a less stable state, because my awareness now isn't as stable as it used to be in sleep paralysis. I'm building my foundation based on my surrender now. So I felt this presence next to me, and I asked it to come with me because I had a little bit of fear, because I've always had fear around this wormhole in my bedroom. I didn't see the presence, I just felt it. So I entered this wormhole, but this time, for the first time, I stayed aware during the transition. And then I realized the wormhole, mirrors, windows, portals, they've never been that. They are just transitions, because awareness never moves. They are just transitions of awareness from one experience to another. When I remained present during the transition, it's almost like the wormhole collapsed and it was just this black space of awareness. And the moment thought arised of, oh, what's happening next, then the experience appeared. This is what I'm getting lately of the mechanics of how reality forms and dissolves. I became, I entered this room. This room was a material I've never seen before. The best way I can describe it is like a white, pure, pearlescent white plastic type of room with no edges. It was all rounded edges. And there was a black opening in the wall that had gold streaks of light just slowly going upwards through this opening. Now, the crazy thing is, I was the presence that came with me, watching me explain what this room was and what this opening in the wall was. So, yeah, that blew my mind after when I woke up, because I didn't even think about that at the time. I was just watching me explain, and I'm thinking, how do I even know what it was? But this room I called the waiting room. And it was kind of a waiting room between experiences. So I told myself that I just need to go into that opening and then I'll experience an out-of-body experience. So my awareness then shifted from this presence into my form, my actual form. And I jumped into this opening, and it was just blackness, nothing there, no thought, just pure awareness. And I was there, let's say, if you want to think about it in human terms, I was there for maybe 10 seconds. And after about 10 seconds, I had this thought, well, what's happening next? What am I waiting for? And as soon as I had this thought, music started playing. And then as music started playing, a sky appeared. And I was just looking at this sky, and then I came down and focused down onto this golf course. And then I had this experience of being on this golf course with my friends, and it was a bit fun, and I was chasing them, and they were hitting golf balls at me. And then my awareness started to fade off a bit then. So I'm not sure how it transitioned into the next one, but it transitioned into another experience where I was a black person, and I was with all of my friends. And there was one of my friends, it was like I knew everyone. One of my friends was in his car blasting music, and I was holding this girl. She wasn't my girlfriend, but she was my friend, and she was cold, and I was just holding her. And one of my friends asked me if I was going to the log cabin on the weekend, and I said, no, I'm not really feeling that. I'm not, I don't think I'm going to go. But it was just like I was him. Yeah, and then I woke up out of that. So that's what I mean by the transition in between. I'm learning that they're not really portals, even though they feel so real and physical. They're just transitions.
So, okay, so the wormhole that's opening up, do you feel that that's sort of like there to make you feel comfortable with traveling? Because I remember years ago, a book I read, it was called A Play of Conscience by Swami Muktananda. And he would say that this golden chariot used to come, and he'd get on the golden chariot, and then it would fly him off to where he needed to go. But like, I know from having out of body experiences that you don't need anything to bring you anywhere. You just think of where you want to go, and you're just there in an instant. Oh, yeah. So what do you think? Is that do you feel that
that's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting. Yeah, exactly that. I think initially it was a symbolic way of relaxing me into transitioning, and now it's just like you don't need anything. You just move yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, it's fascinating that you're learning it all yourself. I mean, I used to read all Bob Monroe's books, and I would be fascinated. Like when he first started getting out of body, he had to fly everywhere. So he would go, okay, I would get out, hover, and then think where he needed to go and start flying out, through the sky. And then later on, he realized, oh, I don't even need to do that. I just think of that place and I appear there. And then even the out of body experience, he didn't even need a body anymore. He wouldn't have the rollout. His consciousness would just be disembodied and move to where he wanted to go.
This is what happened that time with that wormhole. I didn't have to come out. It was just like I was the wormhole, and then I was in that white room. It was, I didn't move anywhere. So yeah, I think that's happening, but it's happening so gradually that I'm learning gradually and integrating gradually, and I'm now able to teach from this place because I'm literally, and it's all about surrender. I know I said it earlier, but it literally is all about surrender. But surrendering in the moments of where you're at, not trying to force going further than where you're at. That's because I was doing that in the past. I was trying to get to see a heavenly realm or see this or see that. And it all came with anxiety and fear and destabilization and more anxiety and integration afterwards. And this is what I've found is by surrendering, you naturally start to control the experience without trying to control the experience.
Okay. So tell me about the teaching. So what are you teaching? Sleep paralysis, out of body techniques.
Yeah. So I teach how to experience, let's call it truth, but not this vast infinity of truth, just truth for where you're at through out of body experiences, hypnagogic states, and dreams. I haven't included meditation in my experience, in my guidance and teachings, because I have never experienced anything from meditation.
Yeah, you don't
You
need
seem
it
to
to
be
have an out. Well,
very
you
good.
don't. Yeah, you don't need it to have an out of body experience.
Yeah, but you can though, can't you? I
Yeah,
think
you can. Yeah,
you
yeah,
can. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'd love to. I've never had the patience. It's calling me, but I've never had the patience to do it. But
yeah. So tell me how you induce an out of body for a person, or how do you teach a person to induce the vibrational state?
okay, so what I've found is everyone is literally on a spectrum. So everyone is different. So it's dependent on where you're at. So people will I've got a private group and people will join that, and I'll ask them to tell me where they're at, what's coming up for them, what's happening. So some people will be like, I can get in sleep paralysis pretty easy. So I teach from sleep paralysis. People will say, I've never had anything happen. I just want it to happen. So I teach them to let go of expectation, let go of trying, keep intention, but not a need, just a curiosity. And I may give them not mantras, what would you call it? Like something to say out loud before bed, something that, yeah,
Affirmation.
an
Yeah.
affirmation, something that anchors, that sticks in you. So you may then have a lucid dream, or you may then get in sleep paralysis. And then once that happens, we go from there. But yeah, and I keep people anchored. I teach them how to enter whatever they need to enter. And then I teach them not to grab onto that, to just focus on the integration, and then to focus on the next step, all through surrender. That's basically what I do. And apart from that, we just all have a great conversation anyway and share little bits and bobs.
And what are the kind of results people are having? Like, because one of the things that I notice, talking to people who are interested in out of body experiences, it's quite difficult to have one if you've never had one before.
But yeah, it is very difficult. I've only had, my group for 2 months maybe, and there's maybe only 10 to 12 people that actively speak out. There's been 2 or 3 that I've had experiences in those 2 to 3 months based on what I've said. But it's all down to really how, whether you are just there for there's no right or wrong. It's down to really whether you are there just to speak, to observe, if you're there for conversation, or if you genuinely want to experience something. And I think it is down to the individual. I can only give you what I know based on my experiences. I can't promise you an experience. I can't give you an experience. I can just give you everything that I know. And I do genuinely believe if you want it deep enough and you surrender and you do what I'm trying to teach, then things will happen, because I've had results.
And why should people do out of body?
I don't want it to be a thing of, you should do it for anything, because to me, the present, you don't use out of body as an escape, basically. Don't use out of body as an escape. Don't use it as something to get somewhere to be, as a goal, as an achievement. You don't need out of body to get anywhere or get enlightened. But out of body experiences do show you one important thing, and that is that there's more. And I think that is the most important thing, because there's a lot of people that try to teach out there. Again, I'm not knocking anyone, to have an out of body and go and see a heavenly realm that will change your life. But once you understand what awareness is and what layers of awareness are, heavenly realm really is no more important than a dense lower realm. Everything is just contrast of awareness. So there's nowhere really anywhere to get or anything to reach, but to having an out of body will show you that there is definitely more.
Yeah. For me, my reason to do out of body was I had a fear of death. I was convinced that I was just a body, and that if there was, if my body died, I stopped. That's what made me want to have one. And I came across the phenomena of out of body, I don't know, like 2009, 2010. And I was like, wow, if I can do that, then I know that I don't die, right? And I was reading books, William Buhlman and Bob Monroe, and I was like, I believe them, but I really want to do it myself. Otherwise, there would always be that doubt in the back of my mind. Maybe I was at the, about to, have my last breath, and there would always be like, were they just making it up? But that would always be in my mind. I wanted to have that experience for myself. And I did. I just threw myself into it. I was doing affirmations all the time, practicing, and eventually it just happened. And then when I had one, then I couldn't stop them. They were just happening all the time. I would just wake up, sleep paralysis, vibration states, without doing anything.
Yeah.
Is that what happens
that's exactly
for you?
what I've
Yeah.
Yeah. I manage it now. I try to do one every couple of weeks. But when I was younger, especially, sleep paralysis, I could just lie down and within 30 seconds I would get into it. That's because I was doing it every night. And it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. So I would say that's why I'm so big on integration. I say take your time and just integrate what happens, because you can, like you just said, the more you do it, it's like muscle memory. And then it's like that veil disappears and you're just in it all the time. So,
and did you ever experience a dry spell where you couldn't do it?
Yeah, well, when I mentioned earlier, when my mind took over and was like, oh yeah, you're an expert, you're a teacher, that just stopped happening for me. And it was only when I gave up on trying and had that realization where it just all started back again. But yeah, that's why I think trying is a big no-no from my experience anyway.
Yeah, I really felt like I had been locked out of heaven when my OBE stopped. I was just like, oh man, like what have I done wrong? I actually felt, I had about a year and a half of going out of body, 2 or 3 times a week. And like I was having a lot of entertainment, kind of zipping around here, going there, looking at this, looking at that. But if I hand on heart, I don't really feel that I was making any sort of like spiritual progress, or I don't feel that my quality of consciousness was really grown. My quality of consciousness started to grow when I started having the lucid dreams and the fear tests and all them sort of situations happening where I would have to make decisions. But having the classic out of body experience, yeah, I don't know. I kind of have a mischievous kind of, well, at least I did then. And I just got the sense that they were like, right, we've had enough of these requests. Let's stop this. Yeah, and it was like, okay, now it's time for you to grow up, go and do the work, the growing up. Yeah, and I never really had the classic out of body. And funny enough, I don't miss it really. I enjoyed it. It just changed. It just changed into something else. Yeah.
Yeah. I found that before when I was before when I was going out and I was having like what people would call the classic, my awareness wasn't as anchored in there. That's why I kind of teach from the bottom up now, because it's like a forced way of doing it, and you're never fully you. There's always something missing. And what you said about the dreams, that's what's happened with me. I started to understand everything, and surrender and everything, and fear test, everything happened through my dreams. I think dreams is massively underrated and massively important, and people need to like maybe explore their lucid dreams a bit more.
Or just even regular dreams. I don't lucid dream so much, but I have very kind of vivid dreams, and I'll always like I have a book. There was a guy I interviewed, Michael Sheridan, and I have his little book. He has a free download, and I will always look up the meaning of it, and I'm like, oh, interesting. Yeah, there's always something to learn. I think, it's such a big period of our day where we're not active, right? That it just makes sense that consciousness would use the dream state to teach us, like when we're kind of taken out of the game for 8 hours. It just seems like a waste of time just to be completely unconscious.
Yeah, well, I see it as you're going inwards, so that's where all growth happens inside, doesn't it? Not really outside. So that's how I see it. I see, because people say higher and lower realms. I don't even like labels really. It's just different contrasts of awareness, and stability of awareness. But I see it as inside and outside more than higher and lower, because I've been able to experience layers of awareness inside and layers of awareness outside, through sleep paralysis outside, and then through dreaming inside, and through hypnagogic states inside. I've also been able to go from a lucid dream to a sleep paralysis state, but outside of my body, and then go outwards that way. So it is like a in and out. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah. I noticed with the dreams, I sense that I am my true authentic self in my dreams. So not acting with my intellect. So if I do something in a dream, I actually class that as the real me. That is who I am in the dream. Not conditioned with, oh, this is what I should do, this is what or what people might think if I act this way. I think I'm my authentic self, or I act in the dreams as my authentic self. And I think it's a good way of kind of getting a gauge of what sort of quality your consciousness is at. If you're going around punching people and violent in your dreams, I think that's something to look at.
That's an important point, what you've raised there, because when you asked me, like, why should people do out of body, I didn't think about that. And that is a very important thing. It's not only about knowing that there's something more. I always bring something back. I always bring like piece of me back that I didn't have before. Like, for example, when I spoke to those beings and I was sovereign in that moment, after that, it's almost like I've stopped taking disrespect from people in my human life, and like more so. So it's almost like that your true self comes more into you. There was something actually that's just reminded me again, if we can speak about this, you've mentioned about the soul being fully in here to experience. Okay, I'm going to give you what I'm getting, and then see if you resonate.
Sure. Yeah.
So what I'm getting from my experiences as well is that just what I've said, there could be a way, and I really do believe that there is, of bringing your soul fully into the human. And I think that may be the point, because there's been experiences I've had where I've noticed like glimmers of ultra HD in certain states of awareness, and they're like higher, deeper states of awareness. And then let's say I'm walking my dog after these experiences, I'll see that glimmer in a tree or on a corner, and I'm thinking, oh, is that my soul coming in more? And it makes me think, oh, that's what you said, that this becomes vibrant or something. It's made me think, when your soul is fully integrated into this experience, does this whole reality just appear as this just ultra real? Because I've had ultra real experiences as my soul on,
Yeah, so I would call that God, what I call God consciousness. So awareness awakes within, and just like the freedom, and it feels like you've, kicked off an uncomfortable shoe. The ego isn't bothering you, and awareness is awake to itself. And it feels like it's like there's a reality within me that's unbounded, right? And then there's the human part. In God consciousness, that awareness within starts looking out through your eyes and recognizing itself in the outside world. So it's seeing that what's in the outside world is the same substance as what it is. And what happens is it's received in through the eyes. So the eyes start to, it's like bliss comes in through the eyes, like the being, you start to feel very blissful. And what I noticed was everything sort of has like, it's not that it's everything shining with gold, but it looks like there's just a kind of like a gold hue or a beautiful kind of, I don't know, light emanating from everything that you see. But it's still the same thing. But it almost looks like you're seeing it with new eyes. You're seeing it for the first time ever. Yeah, that would be my interpretation of that.
Would you say it feels like, have you ever had a lucid dream?
Yes.
Would you say it feels like being lucid here?
Well, my book, right? So my book that I wrote is called Waking Up from the Dream. And I think that the whole thing of having out-of-body experiences and lucid dreams prepared me for what happened in my awakening in 2016, is where I had a lucid dream in this reality. Something, the universe, God, whatever you want to, became lucid in me in that moment. I was in the gym and it woke up and it went, oh my God, I'm dreaming myself into this character. I've fallen asleep. And then I started to look at all the people and it was like, oh my God, I'm dreaming myself into all of them, but I've just awoke in this one. And so that was the whole book that I wrote, was Waking Up from the Dream. And it was God having a lucid dream and waking up in the character of Gareth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we're all dreaming. We're all that one being dreaming itself into every single individual.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of what the oversoul is. And then even past that, it's just layers of it, isn't it? And there's something I wanted to say to people as well. Like, you can, obviously, when you fall asleep, you have a dream. You can also fall asleep in that dream and have another dream. So if you can wake up from that dream into your dream and then wake up from that into here, it does make sense, doesn't it? That maybe you can wake up from here. I feel like this experience is a mirroring of the infinite, of what it does. We mirror the infinite here. We do things that the infinite does, but as humans.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good place to wrap it up, actually. People want to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I have a YouTube, Soul Wanderer Sasha. That's where I release my weekly videos. I'm currently doing some arcs. I've done one. I'm on middle of 2, which is all about dealing with fear after awakening. And my 3rd and 4th arc will be more about the juicy stuff that people want to know about. My deeper work is in my Patreon. That's also Soul Wanderer Sasha. We've got a great little community there. It's not that I just teach. We have monthly calls, conversations. There's people doing their own YouTubes there, and it's just a great way to learn more and explore more about yourself. But yeah, my Patreon's where you can contact me directly. But if you want to follow me, that's on my YouTube.
Have you got a website?
No website.
No. Okay, so just Patreon if they want to get to you. I'm going to put links down below, so they're going to be, if anyone wants to connect with Sasha, down below in the description, links to Patreon and YouTube. Anything you sense that I left out that you would like to finish up on, Sasha?
No, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you having me on. I was really excited to speak to you. I'm sure it will come out the way it was meant to come out. The one thing I will say, which I try to say in every conversation, is that we are currently human, having a human experience. Please give yourselves a break. There's nothing anyone's doing wrong. Life is volatile. That's the whole point of it. Be yourself. be human, enjoy this experience, this very brief temporary experience while you're here, because there's a reason that we're here so briefly. We're here to fully immerse and enjoy what we're here to experience. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Sasha. It's been actually an intriguing conversation. I just sat there listening to your stories. I was really enjoying it. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Sasha. Thank you to the viewers and listeners. Take care, guys. Until the next time. Bye bye.
This has been the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds. Gareth is a lifelong seeker of truth, a spiritual teacher and author, and it's his passion to delve into the profound world of consciousness. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope you've gotten something from it. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, the podcast is available on YouTube and all the major podcasting platforms. Find us on Instagram at _mother_force. Take care, and we'll see you soon on the Endless Possibilities Podcast.